everybody, this is Jen. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be taking a walk through the garden to do our monthly full garden tour. It is now September, so let's see what the garden looks like right here on Garden Jen's Journey. Okay, so I'm going to be taking you for a walk through the garden. We have some things that are starting to die back. They're done for the year, and some things that are still going full force. And so we're going to take a look through the gardens and see what's going on. So this is our container bed area, and some of the stuff in here is just now starting to die back. And other things are just starting to get going. So I'm going to show you what's going on here. I have my Swiss chard under this crate here. I have the crate on it to protect them from my chickens, because the chickens do come in here and eat the grass and stuff that's down here, but they'll also jump up here and eat it. So I have to protect these. And then we have some kale in here, and we got some beets going on there. And then we have some kale here. This was planted earlier in the year, that's why it's a lot bigger. And then what's starting to die back in this garden bed is the Calypso beans. And these are a dry variety bean. And when they get closer to harvest time, I will do a video and show what these look like. They're kind of neat. They look kind of like some people say they look like an orca whale or a panda bear or a Holstein cow pattern. They're kind of really neat. So I'm going to do a video on harvesting these guys once they are fully dyed back and dried out. Okay, so now we are in the main garden, and my medicinal herb bed is really filled out. It's amazing how full it is. And I harvested some valerian out of here. That's what the big hole in this is. It's where my valerian was. And I pulled out the old plants because I have lots of new growth growing. Valerian tends to be invasive if you don't cut the flower heads off before they form the seeds. And so I have lots of valerian growing in other parts of the garden that I'm going to dig out and replant here eventually. But yeah, so my valerian was there. Then we got the pastel yarrow and the echinacea. We have lots of lemon balm, and we have some horehound. As it gets closer over here, you see it's very dense compared to what it looked like earlier in the year. This is very dense. This is kind of like an ecosystem now with everything up. We have the milkweed for the monarch butterflies, and just lots of vegetation around here, and this makes a beautiful ecosystem. So I don't weed it very much. I just let it be kind of like a wild flower area, so to speak. I'll clean it up later. The only weeds that I really worry about is we have I think it's called bindweed. It's a kind of like in the morning glory family. It's a vine that is invasive, and it strangles your plants, so I have to pull that out. And then we have the deadly nightshade. It's a vine that's very invasive, so if I see it growing, I'll pull it out. But grass and other things that are growing in here, I just let it be, because again, it's part of the ecosystem I'm trying to grow my garden into being. It's not just a garden, it's kind of a ecosystem for all the different wild creatures that inhabit a place like this. So it's very important to try to not destroy it or disturb it too much. But then we have the other areas of the flower garden and of the vegetable garden that are more accessible, that I can get in and weed and maintain a little bit more intensely. But you can see my gaillardias are doing really well. My asparagus bed is really popping now. It's got a lot of young ferns in it, which is awesome. So hopefully in the next couple of years I'll have some beautiful spears coming out of that bed right there. And then next to it I had put my tomatoes against my bean trellises because they're indeterminates. So I figured since I already had the trellis in place, I would use those to attach my indeterminate tomatoes. And I have quite a few tomatoes going on there, which is awesome because we've had some very, very wicked weather here, and it's done a lot of damage to my garden. If I pan over here, you'll see a lot of my corn's been knocked down, broken off. I have some corn still standing, and then my other patch I'll take you to in a minute. I've been out here hand pollinating this corn, the ones that have ears on them, trying to get somewhat of a harvest from since that storm came through and damaged a lot of the crop. Coming at the garden from a different direction, this is my rose bed area, and the roses are really starting to take over. I think some of these are almost invasive roses. I might have to dig them back out, but they're really starting to fill in here. And I've got some straw flowers, I've got some zinnias. I even have sunflowers from my bird feeder that's right here. We only use sunflower seeds for our bird feeders because a lot of the other seeds that get thrown down that the birds don't like, it grows into funky plants that you really don't want in your garden. So we only use sunflowers here in the garden, and that way if I have too many of the sunflowers growing, I can pull them out. Otherwise I just let them go, and my bird friends are very happy when they ripen and they can eat the seeds, like they've been doing on this one. So, but, oh, there's a butterfly on the straw flower there. Like I said, my garden is an ecosystem. It's not just a garden. The more you make your garden space into an ecosystem, the lot better your growing is going to be, because you're going to have those beneficial animals coming in, the beneficial insects, the beneficial birds, things like that, that help take care of the bad things that are in your garden. So you got to kind of think about that. It's kind of like a permaculture mindset to grow kind of the way that nature does. So when you see things like this in the garden, you know that you're doing something right. This is my lima bean trellis. It's doing really well. Again, I'm very thankful because of the storms that came through here. It ripped a lot of the vines apart, did a lot of damage, but they're surviving very good. I've got a lot of blossoms. I'm waiting to see some beans on them yet, but we'll see. We'll see. And then right next door is the old Mother Stellar bean trellis. And this thing is full and lush. And it's starting to get attacked by our nasty little bugs there. Those are Japanese beetles. And I will put a link above to how I take care of the Japanese beetles when they're in my garden. So we go into the tunnel here. This is where I have my Swiss chard, my spinach, and my holy basil, because they like more shady environment. So here in the bean trellis area, they get plenty of shade, but they still get that dappled sunlight coming through too. So over here was an experiment that I think didn't work quite as planned. You can barely see them, but I have, again, tomatoes planted along my bean trellis. I was hoping that the beans would kind of hold the tomatoes on as a way to secure them to the trellis, but they've also kind of covered up the tomatoes. So I do have some tomatoes on here. Let's see if I can find one. If I look down here, there is a tomato, but because this foliage is so dense from the beans, it's hard for the bees to find the tomato flowers. So I don't think this was the best idea to plant my tomatoes with my pole beans. But hey, you know, you're never going to know unless you try something new. My roselle's doing okay. I lost 2 plants because of the storms. They got broken, so I only have 1 left. The roselle is the hibiscus that is used in herbal teas and things like that. It comes from the roselle plant. Then next to it is my very tall broom corn. That up there is what you use to make corn brooms. This was supposed to be a rainbow variety, but it is all green. It's not a rainbow by any means. So I did buy some new seed to plant next year to see if it is a different color. But nevertheless, I do have some that I harvested already from the broken stalks from the weather. And I'm thinking about making some corn brooms, some small corn brooms to help clean the house. So if I get to making the corn brooms, I will definitely do a video on it. My hollyhocks are finishing out. I have them labeled because we have some people who want seeds from the various hollyhocks we have. We've got the single and the double blooms, as well as the black hollyhock, which seems to be very, very popular. So I am going to be saving seeds from those. If you want seeds from those, let me know, and I will put them in my Etsy shop so you can purchase these seeds. These plants are all grown organically in my garden, but I'm not certified organic, so I can't, guarantee, so to speak, that these are organic. It's just the way that I grow here. But yeah, if you want seeds from these plants here, or my Old Mother Stallard beans, let me know, and I will put them in the Etsy shop, and you can purchase them there. These are some more beans. These are the Hadassah shield beans, and they're not as full as the beans behind us because, again, with the frost and the storm damage, these guys really got hammered. So I don't have a lot of beans compared to the other 2 trellises, but they're hanging on. So is my Trifano Violetto pole beans. They're hanging on. Again, they were battered pretty bad by the frost and the storms. But I have managed between this one and the other trellis behind me on the other side to get around 12 quarts of beans just from my own garden patch. You can see some there is about ready to be picked. And then I have quite a few that I'm letting go to seed here. So they're bigger. If they look like they're muscular, it's because these guys are the ones I'm letting go to seed. So they get really, really plump. And then I'll save those seeds to plant for future gardens. And again, if you want some seeds like this, let me know, and I will put them in my Etsy shop because I love to share seeds. This bean trellis is almost a failure. And I say almost because I'm still getting a harvest from it. So it's not a complete failure. But I specifically grow pole beans as much as possible to save on my ground space. And somebody had told me to try the Blue Lake bean. And Blue Lakes are generally a bush bean. But I found some pole bean variety. And I purchased them and I grew them. And at the time of the frost that we had, it killed off quite a few, and so I had to replant them. And then it took forever for them to grow, and some were growing and some weren't, and I was really confused on what was going on. And then the storm came through, did some damage, and so I came out and looked again, and I realized that about 50% of the beans that I planted on this trellis were bush beans. They were not the pole beans that they were supposed to be, and they were all in that package of pole variety beans. So I yanked all them out because I can't grow bush beans on this ground. The ground critters and stuff will eat the beans before I even know they're there. So I yanked all them out. I gave them to my chickens. They were so happy with me. But I do still have a harvest of the pole beans that are actual pole beans. See, I have some that actually have to be picked. I'm not going to be saving seeds from these beans though, because number one, they were not the beans that they were supposed to be, and they probably cross-pollinated with the bush beans, and so I won't have a true seed. And number two, I really didn't like them anyway. I'm going to go back to my Kentucky Wonder. I really like that plant. Things that take a while to grow but are really starting to show some great promise is my cucumbers. These took forever to grow, but you can see I have a large cucumber down there. I have another one that's getting about that size there, and they are supposed to be that size. These are the Japanese cucumbers, which are a longer cucumber, kind of like the English variety cucumbers you might find in the store. These are very similar. So that one is about ready to harvest. I'll probably harvest that for tonight's supper. But you can see how beautiful this vine is doing. It's gone all the way up. I actually need to secure that so it doesn't get whipped by the winds. This is my other corn patch. I am so thankful because it was laying kind of on the ground like the other one that I showed you. But it is standing almost completely upright again. And again, I have taken the initiative to start hand pollinating the ears and things, just so I can make sure that I get some corn. I don't know how much I'm going to get because my crop was really damaged, but the season's not over yet. The Lord's not done with his work here yet. So we're going to see what happens as the garden season progresses. I know one of the things that I'm going to grow next year, is this one. This is the Autumn Beauty Sunflower, and I really like it. It's a beautiful, beautiful sunflower. I used to grow mammoth sunflowers and the Mongolian giant. They just get really tall and really huge, which is really cool. But with our really bad winds, it's not a good idea to keep growing those varieties. So I'm growing some smaller varieties that I can tuck in with the corn, or I can tie against my trellises. This is some of the other damage from the storm that you can see that these are completely knocked over, but they're still alive. So I'm just letting them be. I take the pollen off the ends here and use them to pollinate, since they are not going to be able to pollinate laying like this. But we'll see how they do. My raspberries that I transplanted earlier this summer are really taking off. This is the new growth from them, and so I'm going to have to tie them up at the end of the season. Next to them, this is my Tiger Eye. It's a bush variety, a tall bush variety pinto bean, and it's starting to die back, starting to dry out. So hopefully I will be able to show you what these look like at the end of the season as well. I think they took a lot of damage from the storm because I think they're dying a little prematurely, but we're going to see. I will do a video and we'll look at it together. My hops plant has really grown. It's grown so much it's going across the top and falling back down. So that's exciting. Now what I'm waiting to see is the flowers that I need to be able to save for some herbal remedies. Last but not least is my greenhouse, where I have my peppers and my sweet potatoes. You can see that my peppers are just loaded. I've actually harvested quite a bit off here already. These are cayenne peppers. And then my sweet potatoes in the back are really starting to grow out. I was thinking that if the temperature was right and everything was right, these vines of the sweet potatoes would kind of cover my greenhouse, but it hasn't happened. And that's okay. I'm really anxious to see how they're doing growing in a pot. So when it gets time to harvest those, I will do a video on that as well. So that's what the garden's looking like at the beginning of September. A lot of things are still growing. Some things are really starting to produce, and other things are starting to die back as the end of the year. I'm so thankful for what is growing with all the trials that we've had in the garden. Be sure to click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and browse through some of the other videos so you can see what all has been going on in the garden this year. I will try to put a link to the playlist right here. That way you can kind of browse a little faster. I thank you for being with this journey today. If you liked the video and it gave you some inspiration, make sure to give it a thumbs up. As always, I hope that wherever you are wonderfully blessed. So until next time, everybody, bye-bye.